Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to this week's show. This is High Strangeness in the Liminal Abyss, and I am your show host, SHETAN NOIR. Now, last couple of weeks I've been talking about my trip to Tucson and the Gem and Mineral Show, which was totally awesome, and that was like a bucket list trip for me. Hopefully, it will become, if not a yearly thing, maybe every 2 years. Um, because I was saving every penny I could, get my hands on for that trip and still came home with money. So, um, a bigger suitcase next time, definitely. But tonight's show, I kind of wanted to talk about a report that I read, believe it was last week, which got me thinking about other possibilities. So, this report was talking about how our current population of blue whales are not actually fully blue whales. DNA studies are now showing that blue whales and fin whales have been crossbreeding, and they estimate now that I believe 75% of the blue whale population that we have on Earth currently are actually blue whale, fin whale hybrids. And this is possibly creating a new species of whale. And we've seen this with other species, um, wolf dogs, coy dogs, which are coyote dog mixes, um, Pizzlies, which are polar bear, grizzly bear hybrids. It's been done for centuries with horses and donkeys, mules and jennies. That typically, when they do a hybrid like that, like the mules and the jennies are usually born sterile. They don't reproduce, but we see it with, like, they breed the lions with the tigers, and you get like the ligers and uh I know if it's a lion with stripes, it's a liger. I'm not quite sure what they call the solid colored ones. I'm sorry on that one. So, does this set a precedence for these new hybridized species being given a scientific name, which would be a Latin name? And then what would they be called? So, would these blue fin whales be called something different, or possibly a bluefin? But that might be confusing because you have bluefin tuna, um, which are totally different. So, with these hybridizations going on naturally in the wild, and there's, I mean, there's some people who will say, "Oh, it should be stopped," and but animals are going to breed to other animals. I've seen steers, bulls trying to breed to a horse. For those of you who don't know what a steer or a bull is, that's a male cow trying to breed to a mare horse. Um, just because the horse is, in season, and the males of a species smell that, and it gets them going, and voila. But that is two different, very different species trying to breed together. So I don't think that's quite a possibility. But when you take something like the wolf dogs, wolves are a canine, dogs are canines. So a wolf breeding to Alaskan Malamute or a husky, you still have a lot of the same characteristics and features, just one is more domesticated and dependable, if you can call Siberian Husky dependable. And then you've got the wolf part, which is kind of unpredictable and has its own thinking, of, well, why do I need a human being? Yes, it's nice that you feed me and you give me toys, but if I get loose and run, I'm going to run. So there's all different ways of looking at this and comprehending this, but if natural occurring hybridization is happening in the world today and new species are being created as we live and breathe right now, what does this hold for the future? And does that lead to the extinction of the two species that are creating the new hybridization? Which can be quite a, you know, unsettling thought of, okay, what happens if all the blue whales, true, genetically 100% blue whales, disappear off the planet? That leaves a very big gap in the ocean's ecosystem. But we're going to get into talking about this more after our commercial break. Welcome back from our break. So we were talking about natural selection and how it's leading to hybridization. So it's assumed that the reason that the blue whales are allowing or accepting fin whales as mates is because there's potentially a dying off of the blue whales as a species. And the breeding populace of females and males might not be connecting with one another. There might be so few of them left swimming in our oceans today that if the fin whale population is doing somewhat better, that the fin whale is a available species to prolong the population of the blue whales, but then our blue whale populations are not 100% blue whale. They are these fin whale, blue whale mixes. And if that offspring is a viable breeding prospect, meaning it's not sterile, that it can either produce, if it's female, if it can produce, eggs, or if it's a male, can produce sperm. What happens when that hybrid breeds back to either a fin whale or a blue whale? So this is where we get a muddying of the waters, and you can definitely see how a new species is going to emerge out of this, because if it happens often enough, and as somebody who really researches um, dogs normally, I've bred and shown dogs for years. looking at the different traits that people want. Let's take the French Bulldog. So everybody loves it. Most people love them. But we're seeing that the hobby breeders or the pet public who really wants French Bulldogs, and they're in demand now, um, they're really cashing in on it. So you can get French Bulldogs in any color. Which is usually they would come in like a fawn, black brindle, sometimes blue, but now we're seeing party colored, which is white with a solid color. We're seeing brindles, which is a solid color with striping. We're seeing harlequins, which is a splotching of colors mixed in. So you would have like black, gray, maybe some tan if it's has black and tan markings. And then you'd have like a gray and black splotching overhead. If I can get her up here. Tegan! Tegan! Tee-tee! Maybe she'll come. And then you've got merles, which merles to me is usually a gray and black mixed with a white. So you'll have a white base coat with splotches of color, either gray factored or blue factored or red or chocolate factored, and have those splashes on it. Generally, it'll either be blue based or red based. You generally do not get a mixing of grays with brown or reds with blues. Okay, so those are just the coat colors and combinations that you can get in French Bulldogs, but there's different body styles and facial characteristics that they're breeding for. One being a gremlin, or a Grinch type face, like the Grinch from the Christmas. Even seeing fluffy Frenchies, which look totally odd to me, but that is the current trend in French Bulldogs that the pet public is embracing and buying and potentially breeding. So in 50 years from now, the standard that we currently have from AKC, UKC, whatever, for the French Bulldog that says smooth coated, these acceptable solid colors, is that going to change to being smooth or fluffy or smooth or long haired, solid colors plus piebald, dappled, harlequin, merled, brindled. So you can see how it starts to get more and more interesting the more you look at what can possibly happen when you have an introduction of a similar species to a current breeding population. So with the Pisleys, I don't know if it's being studied currently or not, how many hybridization breedings are happening between polar bears and grizzlies. You have two bears who are very similar in size, have overlapping territories, and at different points come in contact with each other. Is it possible that there are more of these breedings happening than what biologists, conservationists actually understand or even know about? And when a population of these hybrids become their own entity, their own breeding populace, when does science or biologists, DNR, say, okay, we have a new species and we need to recognize it and give it a name? Um, that's something that I want to look into is at what point does a population become big enough that it's recognized by the scientific community or organizations that it is its own entity and its own breeding populace and deserves its own classified name and common name. So um, each species on Earth has a common name and it has a scientific name, which means that anywhere around the world, biologists studying it, if you tell them the scientific name of the animal or they can discover the scientific name of the animal, everybody kind of understands what they're talking about and recognizes what species it is. And from there, they can create a more detailed explanation or investigation of what is going on and why they're seeing different traits pop up in different, populations. Um, so it's going to be interesting. I want to do some more research into this because I have questions and I know they're out there. Um, but it's very fascinating what's going on out there in the world. And I challenge all of you, go out and explore this world and be curious out there. And until next week, who knows what we'll talk about, but tune in next week for another great show. Bye.